In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at the product sync capabilities within the Connect Veracore plugin provided by Infigo. So please do note that the only products supported in this sync process are Infigo stock products. No variable products, such as mega edit products, will be created as part of this process. If you wish for variable products to be created, this would need to be done manually in addition to this process. This part of the Veracore plugin allows for your Veracore products to be pulled and created within Infigo itself. So the first section we're going to look at here relates to synced information and Infigo mappings. And this relates to the information that we're actually able to sync and how it's mapped into Infigo. Now, the easiest place to locate this is actually within our help file or on the associated Tango document that comes with this particular video, where there's a screenshot of the table in question. So all I've done here is search for Veracore on our knowledge base, and I'm just going to go to the Connect Veracore article. There's loads of information on here, which is actually a nice addition to go along with this video series if you need some additional information. However, what I'm looking for here is the product sync table. And what this shows you is the Veracore property name, the Infigo property name, and then some related comments on what exactly is brought over using that exchange. The majority of these properties are brought in from the Get Offers API call. The only exception to this is the Wait property. This is from the Get Products API call and so requires at the moment an owner ID to be specified at a storefront level only. And we'll talk about that a bit more in a few moments' time. As part of the Connect Veracore plugin, we have a number of settings that let you control different parts of this product sync. So if we go back into our Infigo admin area, and you first want to go to Connect Plugins. So as we've seen in previous tutorials, this is where you can actually configure the different Connect plugins that you have available. And from within there, you should be able to locate Connect Veracore if it's enabled on your platform. And then click Configure. Now we're going to come down to this second section, this Offer Sync section. And I'm just going to go through some of the properties that we have available here and what exactly they allow you to do. So we'll start off with the ability to include attribute combinations. Now, attribute combinations themselves are covered in more detail in different tutorials. But for example, let's say we had an article of clothing on our storefront. Different attribute combinations could be if you have a small size in the color black, or if you have a small size in the color red, or medium size in the color black, for example. All of those could be different attribute combinations, which would allow you to have different SKUs, different stock levels, and that kind of information. So enable this setting if you would like to sync product attribute combinations. It will also check attribute combination external IDs when it's updating any offers from Veracore. At this point, it's important to understand how we go about setting up the connection of products between Infigo and Veracore for both regular stock products and attribute combinations. Firstly, a bit of background on the differences of terminology between Infigo and Veracore. So what Infigo refers to as a product, in Veracore is an offer. So Veracore has the concept of products. However, out of those, you are required to create offers, which are what is actually sold. The Infigo property that we use to map between the two systems is the external ID, and we'll see that a couple of times throughout this series. In Veracore, this would be the equivalent of the offer ID. So a couple of scenarios to consider. Firstly, we'll have a look at how we would map them together. Firstly, if your product already exists within Infigo, but you wish to add it to the sync with Veracore, then you will need to manually update the external ID for that product with the offer ID from Veracore. So for example, if I go to this other tab here, I've launched a very basic product that we've made. Now, if I go onto those product variant settings, and go to connect link, then I have the ability to populate the external ID that I want to utilize. So external ID in Infigo would be the offer ID in Veracore. So simply place the offer ID in there, or click load available IDs from plugin if you've already formed the link, and you'll be able to select it from the drop-down list. And then you can say save connect external ID. As we've covered, the Connect Veracore integration also has the ability to create Infigo stock products. In this scenario, several properties can be automatically populated on the Infigo product, which we covered a moment ago, and that includes the external ID. So that is one of the properties that's automatically populated. The last scenario here is attribute combinations, which is what this setting we were just talking about covers. Attribute combinations are not synced automatically and will need to be linked manually to the corresponding offer ID in Veracore in order for the sync to begin functioning. So just to show you where this is accomplished, if I go back to my same product, this time I'm going to go into the product variant details. And then go across to attributes. Now, as we mentioned before, there's other tutorial information that covers attribute combinations in greater detail. So on this product, I've set some sample attribute combinations up. So you'll see we've got a couple of different colors of our item of clothing in a couple of different sizes, just as an example configuration. And linking these together is just a case of coming to these attribute combinations and then clicking on the familiar connect link icon. It'll take us to the same screen that we saw earlier on, where we can choose the connect plugin, and then we can type in the corresponding external ID, which is the offer ID in Veracore. Once you've put that in, hit save, and that link is now created. So a little bit of context into the order in which things will happen if you have this attribute combinations option selected. So if you have the attribute combination setting enabled, then the sync, when it begins, will proceed in the following order. The sync will first check the attribute combinations for a matching offer ID. If it doesn't find one of those, then it will check all of the products themselves for a matching offer ID. And again, if it doesn't find anything it's looking for, then it will create a new product and apply the offer ID as the external ID. We have the ability to import product images on sync. So when this is enabled, we'll check if the product from Veracore has an image attached to it, and then we'll upload that to the Infigo product image that's created. If the Infigo product already has an image, then the API image we get from Veracore will be ignored. And then associated with that, we have the Veracore product image path. And this is a prefix. So in case the image path returned from the product XML, which we get from Veracore, is a local path, then we will prefix it with the value from this setting. So for example, we ask that you populate this setting with the prefix URL of where the images are stored, as the API only returns the relative path to them. So there's an example here, which if it's located in a sample FTP, or you might have something like a web address. And this will very much be unique to you. Next setting down, we have the Veracore product image max file size. So in here, enter the value of the maximum file size in bytes of images that you would like to be imported. And this helps you to control the performance of your site by making sure you don't bring in images that you consider to be too large. Any image that's over this specified size will not be imported. Next down, we have the ability to manage the inventory tracking. So enable this setting if you'd like to have stock management enabled on all of your created products. So enable this setting if you want the stock count to be pulled in from Veracore and stored against your Infigo product. This will also set the manage inventory method setting against the Infigo product to track inventory when the product is created. In a similar vein, we have the ability to enable back orders. So enable this setting if you want the Infigo product setting back orders to be set to allow quantity below 0. Do bear in mind that this is on a storefront level for all products on the storefront. Next down, we have tax categories for taxable products. So you select the Infigo tax category. So you can see if I select the drop down here, I've got a few populated entries. These are our Infigo tax categories, which again are covered in a different tutorial. So select the tax category that you want to assign to taxable Veracore offers. And this is assigned as the default tax category. Next down, you have the product owner mode, which gives you the ability to select between single and multiple. Now, this is very much Veracore specific. Specify if your storefront has a single owner ID or multiple owner ID. If it's single, then select single from this drop-down list here. And then input the relevant owner identifier in this box here. If you have multiple product owners, then select multiple. You'll see that we get a few additional settings appearing here. And what we must do at this point is create a dynamic report in Veracore itself. So the report has to contain the required column names. So it's product ID, product weight type, product weight. Additional columns can be included as long as those particular ones are present. Now, this report sits as an API endpoint for Infigo to target. So when multiple is selected, dynamic report credentials are required to be input into this particular screen here. And this includes information such as the report API domain. So this is the dynamic report domain, or RHU. So this, for example, could be infigo.veracore.com. That will be slightly different for your own particular setup. We've got the report username, which is the web service user ID. Report password, so the web service password. Report system ID, so this is the 6-character Veracore OMS WMS system ID against which you're running the report. And then we have the report name. So this is the name of the web service report from which your products will sync. Now, do bear in mind that this dynamic report is only required to sync product weights from Veracore. If weight is not important, so such as if you are not calculating shipping by weight, for example, then you may be able to omit this configuration and just use a single product owner instead. Do remember that it's a good idea to set up the entire plugin settings before you actually perform this sync. So even though we've put the details in here, it's recommended that we don't actually deselect the disable sync on tick setting until we finish the rest of the configuration options. However, when you do so, there's a background task that will be run, which will use this information to draw in the stock products from Veracore into Infigo. Here we can see an example of a synced product and the information that's been brought over. So we can see, for example, that we've got the product name. Then if I go into the product variant settings, most of the other transferred information will be in here, including things such as the SKU. We have the price. We have inventory tracking and stock quantity. And then also we have an external reference. So this is the external reference that connects the two systems.